Hey everyone, welcome back. We are doing the Writing a Trope Christmas Movie Style Story mini unit today. My name is Hannah McAdams, and today we're going to talk about character development. So, hopefully, you have already seen lesson 1. This is lesson 2, character development. So, today we're going to talk about protagonists. Protagonists are the main characters, and in this style of writing, there are two main characters. Okay, there are two main characters. We will call them Protagonist A and Protagonist B. These are the characters who will start as enemies and eventually they will fall in love. They will seem to be opposites in the beginning, so you can use your worksheet to name your protagonists and develop their characters. Okay. All right, so let's start. Protagonist A is from a big city, so you need to decide what city your character is from. So if you want to follow along in the worksheet, I'm just kind of going down the column here. Is your protagonist male or female? I chose female, but it doesn't matter. In these kind of stories, sometimes the protagonist A is female and sometimes he is male. It doesn't really matter, but I chose female. Okay. So I named my protagonist Holly Berry. Get it? Okay. And she is from New York City. Okay. And I'm just making this up. Your big city can be anything you want. A lot of them are in New York or Chicago or LA. But really, as long as it's bigger than the small town, it doesn't matter. You could pick Indianapolis or Nashville or something like that as well. Okay, a job. Usually protagonist A works for a big corporation. So I said that she's a lawyer. Okay. And then we need to choose one of the options below. Protagonist A usually does not have a family or is fighting with a family or has never met the family but wants to meet them. Okay, so maybe for that last one, Protagonist A was adopted or something. But they're disconnected with their family in some way. Okay, so choose what you want. And again, you don't have to follow this exactly. You can make up your own. In fact, I kind of went away with that a little bit and said that I want my protagonist to have a cousin going through radiation treatments. So that's my story. Okay. All right. And then how does protagonist A feel about the holidays? So either protagonist A just doesn't like the holidays, or maybe the holiday makes protagonist A sad or lonely. Okay, and then you need to say why. I chose this, and my reason why is protagonist A doesn't have a family anymore. She really misses her family, but she only has the one cousin, and that cousin is going through radiation treatments. Okay. All right, and again, this is just sort of the brainstorming process. So you can get some ideas, and then as we plan, you might say, oh, I want to change my character. That's fine. Don't worry. This is not set in stone. We're just starting to think. Okay. All right. So for each of the protagonists need a conflict, and later we're going to plan the conflicts in more detail. But for now, just start thinking about this. Do you want your protagonist from the big city to have to go to the small town because of a job reason? So the boss told protagonist A to go do a story on the Christmas tree lighting or something if it's a reporter. Okay. Or protagonist A wants a promotion in his or her job. So it could be that she's a lawyer, but she wants to make partner in the firm or something like that. Protagonist A is burned out and decides to take a vacation in the small town. So maybe she just needs a break, or he, if you choose for him to be a boy. Or protagonist A's family needs him or her to come home to the small town because of a crisis. So that's usually if protagonist A is fighting with his family, then sometimes he has to come home to help. Okay, and I picked that one because the cousin is sick and going through radiation treatments, so she needs somebody to help her. Okay, all right. Now let's go to protagonist B. Protagonist B is from a small town, Is Protagonist B male or female? Will you choose? If you said that Protagonist A was female, then you want Protagonist B to be male. So that's what I did, but it's your story. Okay, then name. So I came up with Chris Tree, okay? And small town, I came up with Tinsel, New Jersey. Now, that's not a real place, or at least I don't think it's a real place, but I like that it sounds a little Christmassy because sometimes in these stories that happens. There is a real place in Indiana called Santa Claus, Indiana. So, there are some towns that have Christmas names, but not very many. In these movies, though, all the towns sound like that. Okay, job usually works for a small business. I said that he's a candle maker. Okay, and then family, choose one of the options below. Very close to the family or wants to get out of the family business but doesn't want to hurt the family members. I chose the second one. Chris is a candle maker, but I think I'm going to have him want to start a cancer foundation. So we'll talk about that for conflict. Okay, so sometimes Protagonist B has a dream of opening some sort of shop. Maybe a protagonist is pretending to be something he or she is not, like a boss or a twin, or maybe he's hiding a royal status. There's a lot of these stories where there's a prince, but he doesn't want to be a prince, or he just wants to be treated like a normal guy. So that could be a conflict. Protagonist B has a cause that is close to his or her heart. That's the one I chose because he wants to start a cancer foundation. Protagonist B's family is going to lose the family business. That's a really, really popular one. That happens a lot. Okay, so this is your conflict, whatever the protagonist's problem is that he or she is facing. Okay, and again, it doesn't have to be these. You can come up with something else. That's fine. The main thing is to remember, what does your protagonist want or need? Okay, and by the end of the story, your protagonists are going to have happy endings. Now, sometimes they think that they want a job promotion, but really what they need is to settle down in a small town. And so they're still getting what they need, even if that wasn't what they wanted at the beginning. But almost always they get exactly what they wanted, depending on what that is. So remember, when you pick a conflict, you've got to figure out a way, and we'll do this when we plan the conflict in lesson 4, but you've got to figure out a way that it's resolved by the end of the story. Okay? All right, so I picked Protagonist B has a cause that is close to his or her heart. In my story, Protagonist B's brother passed away from cancer, so he wants to start a cancer foundation in the memory of his brother. Okay. All right, and then you can also have some optional. This is really fun, but it does make the story a little more complicated. So you don't have to do this, but either protagonist A or B, or both of them, come into contact with some sort of magic, such as Santa, time travel. I love the time travel ones. Elf, or an angel. So somebody comes and kind of messes up their plans, and then they end up needing to learn a lesson from this magic. Okay, so that's definitely something you can add in if you want to, but it does make this story a little bit more complicated. All right, now just remember that you can make something else up. You don't have to do what I say. These are just some common tropes that we see in these stories, but it's fine if you come up with a different idea. And also, don't worry if you change your mind partway through this planning stage. We are just brainstorming. You're just getting ideas, collecting ideas, and eventually we'll come up with a whole plot. But for now, we just need to sort of start thinking about what we want to do. But don't worry if you have one idea and then you come up with something different. You can change it. It won't take very long. Okay, the main thing to remember when developing a character is to determine what the character wants or needs. In this style of writing, the character will almost always get what he or she wants or needs by the end of the story. Okay, now we're going to talk about the antagonist. Okay, the antagonist is the bad guy. In this typical or particular style of story, the bad guy is usually the ex-boyfriend or girlfriend of either protagonist A or B. Okay, and we meet them at the beginning of the story, and then right before the end, they usually break up the couple, and then the couple gets back together a couple minutes later. But the antagonist is a flat character, not very well developed, who does not want the best for the protagonist. So I have not done a whole lot of pleading with my antagonist yet, but I think that my antagonist is going to be the girl or the ex-girlfriend of Protagonist B, which is Chris Tree, the candle maker from the small town. Okay, so you need to give this person a name, where do they live, and what is their job. I think that the girlfriend is going to be a candle developer, or like a candle making developer. So she's going to like try to get Chris to, expand his business and start making candles for big companies. And Chris doesn't want to do that. Okay. And remember, what does the antagonist want the protagonist to do? Like I said, she wants him to continue in the candle making business, but Chris wants to start his a cancer foundation. Okay, all right. Character development. So these are now minor characters. Now, minor characters, we don't have to do a whole lot with them. They're not as developed as the protagonist. All you need to do is give them a name and then one fact about each of them. For example, the best friend of protagonist A loves snow globes. That's all we need to know about her. We don't need to know anything else. The mom of protagonist B is the queen. So if protagonist B is a prince pretending not to be a prince, then his mom is the queen. That's all we need to know about the mom. Okay. So for protagonist A, usually protagonist A has a best friend. So what's her name and what is the fact about her or him? And then there are some optional family members. If your protagonist is an orphan, you can skip this, but sometimes it's nice to know something about their family members, even if they've passed away. Like, for example, maybe protagonist A's mom loved Christmas ornaments, and so then protagonist A sees a Christmas ornament and she says, oh, my mom loved Christmas ornaments. And then at the end, protagonist B gives her a Christmas ornament and she says, oh, my mom loved Christmas ornaments. So sometimes it's good to know that, okay? And then sometimes there's a pet. Okay, so you get the idea. All right, now it's a little more complicated with protagonist B because we're traveling to protagonist B's hometown. So there's more friends and family that live there near protagonist B. So usually protagonist B has a best friend as well. So come up with a fact. And then family members, fact for mom, dad, brother or sister. And then optional, there's also sometimes there is a child involved, whether it's a niece or nephew or an actual child of the protagonist. Maybe he or she is a widower or divorced or something. And then sometimes there's a pet. Sometimes the pet is what brings the characters together. I saw a movie not too long ago where there were kittens and the protagonists had to find homes for all the kittens, and that's why they got together in the first place. So that could be an option as well. I'm working with my daughter on her story right now, and she has decided that she wants a pet that can magically speak. So there you go. It's kind of fun. All right, that's all I have for you today, guys. I will talk to you next time.